The antiseptic smell of the hospital had become almost comforting over the last 3 days. As Meredith Sinclair signed her discharge papers, the nurse frowned. "Dr. Brenner wanted you to stay one more night for observation." "Mrs. Sinclair," Meredith tucked a strand of auburn hair behind her ear, wincing as her movement pulled at her stitches. "I know, but I'm feeling much better. And it's our anniversary today." 8 years? Her mouth attempted a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "My husband thinks I'm coming home tomorrow." "I want to surprise him." The nurse's expression softened. "That's sweet. Just take it easy, okay? That gallbladder surgery isn't something to rush recovery from." "I will." Meredith pocketed her prescription for painkillers. "Thank you for everything." As the Uber pulled into the driveway of her colonial-style home in the suburbs, Meredith felt a wave of exhaustion. Maybe the nurse had been right. Maybe she should have stayed that extra day. But something had been gnawing at her for weeks now. The late nights Daniel claimed were work. The vague text messages, the sudden business trips, the distance growing between them like a slow-spreading frost. She paid the driver and carefully made her way up the walkway, noting Daniel's black Audi in the driveway. He was home at 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Unusual. She'd expected to have a few hours to set up a small surprise for him before he got home from work. Meredith unlocked the front door quietly, planning to rest before preparing the surprise dinner she had envisioned. As she stepped into the foyer, she heard it. Soft music coming from upstairs. Their bedroom. And then, unmistakably, a woman's laugh. 3 months earlier, Meredith had been happier than she'd been in years. At 35, she had finally secured tenure at the university where she taught art history. Daniel, at 38, had just made partner at his architectural firm. They'd been talking about starting a family, something they'd put off for years while building their careers. "To us," Daniel had said, clinking his champagne glass against hers at the celebration dinner she'd arranged. His dark eyes had crinkled at the corners when he smiled, one of the first things that had attracted her to him when they met at a mutual friends gallery opening. 9 years ago, "To new beginnings," she'd replied. The irony of those words wasn't lost on her. Now, as she stood frozen in her foyer, the sounds from upstairs becoming unmistakable, her surgical incision throbbed as her heart hammered in her chest. Their marriage hadn't been perfect. What marriage was? They'd weathered Daniel's father's death 2 years ago, her miscarriage the year before that. But they'd always been a team. At least, that's what Meredith had thought. The first sign had been subtle. Daniel started working later, which wasn't unusual given his new position. But then he began guarding his phone, turning it face down when she entered the room. Their intimate life, never lacking before, had become sporadic, then nearly non-existent in the past 2 months. "It's just stress," he'd assured her one night after pulling away from her touch. "The Jensen project is killing me." She'd believed him because she wanted to. Because the alternative was unthinkable. 2 weeks ago, she'd found a long blonde hair on his jacket. Her hair was auburn, probably from Cassandra in marketing, he'd explained easily. "She's always leaning over my desk to look at blueprints." Again, she'd accepted the explanation. She was not by nature a suspicious person. Trust had always come easily to Meredith, perhaps too easily. The pain had started 3 days ago. A sharp, persistent ache in her abdomen that had finally sent her to the emergency room. Acute cholecystitis. Her gallbladder was inflamed and needed to come out immediately. Daniel had been there for the surgery, concerned and attentive. He'd stayed with her that first night, sleeping uncomfortably in the hospital chair. The second day, he'd brought her flowers and her favorite books. But by the third day, his visits had become shorter, his excuses about work more frequent. "I'll have everything ready for when you come home tomorrow," he'd promised that morning, kissing her forehead before hurrying out. "Just rest and heal." Now, as Meredith stood in her foyer, her surgical wound pulsing with pain, she realized the extent of his betrayal. He hadn't been preparing for her homecoming. He'd been planning to use their empty house, their marital bed, for his affair. Her hand gripped the banister as she took the first step up the stairs. The music grew louder as Meredith climbed the stairs, each step sending a dull ache through her abdomen. Her mind raced with possibilities. Perhaps she was mistaken. Perhaps there was some explanation that wouldn't shatter the life she had built. But as she reached the top landing, there was no mistaking the sounds coming from behind the half-closed door of their bedroom. A woman's breathless laughter, the low murmur of Daniel's voice. Words she couldn't make out, but the intimate tone was unmistakable. Meredith stood outside the door, her body trembling. 8 years of marriage, the dreams they'd shared, the future they'd planned, all of it balanced on the precipice of the moment before her. She pushed open the door. The scene burned itself into her memory in vivid, excruciating detail. Daniel, his back to the door, hovering over a woman with long blonde hair spread across the pillows. Their pillows? On their bed with the gray linen duvet Meredith had picked out last winter. The woman saw Meredith first, her eyes widening in shock, hands pushing at Daniel's chest. "Daniel?" Meredith said, her voice remarkably steady. He whipped around, naked and exposed in more ways than one, his face drained of color. "Meredith," he gasped. "You're supposed to be in the hospital." The blonde woman scrambled to cover herself with the sheet, their sheet, her expression a mixture of embarrassment and defiance. "Clearly," Meredith replied. The woman, younger than Meredith, perhaps 30, gathered the sheet around herself and looked between them. "You said she was coming home tomorrow," she hissed at Daniel. "She was," Daniel stammered, reaching for his discarded boxers. I can explain, can you?" Meredith leaned against the doorframe, suddenly aware of how weak her body felt. The surgical pain was nothing compared to the crushing pressure in her chest. "Is this Cassandra from marketing?" she asked, gesturing to the blonde. The woman flinched at being addressed directly. "No," Daniel said, pulling on his pants with jerky movements. "This is Vanessa. She's a client." "A client," Meredith repeated flatly. "And do you service all your clients this way, or is she special?" Vanessa gathered her clothes from the floor, clutching them to her chest. "I should go." "Don't leave on my account," Meredith said, the calm in her voice belying the storm raging inside her. "This is apparently your show." "I'm just an unexpected audience member." Daniel stepped toward her, reaching out. "Meredith, please." "This isn't what it looks like." She laughed then, a hollow sound that scraped her throat raw. "It's exactly what it looks like, Daniel. You're sleeping with another woman in our bed, on our anniversary." His face contorted in horror as realization dawned. "Today's the 14th. "Oh God, 8 years, she said softly. 8 years and you couldn't even remember." Vanessa had managed to slip on her dress, a sleek navy number that probably cost more than Meredith's monthly university salary. She grabbed her heels, avoiding eye contact. "I'll wait downstairs," she murmured to Daniel. "You'll do no such thing," Meredith said, her voice taking on an edge that surprised even her. "This is my house. You don't get to make yourself comfortable here. Vanessa, just go," Daniel said quickly. "I'll call you later." As Vanessa slipped past Meredith in the doorway, their eyes met briefly. There was no remorse there, only embarrassment at being caught. She wondered how long it had been going on, how many times this woman had been in her home, in her bed. "How long?" Meredith asked once they were alone. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands. 3 months. The timing hit her like a physical blow. 3 months. Right when they'd been celebrating their career milestones, talking about starting a family. "Were you ever going to tell me?" she asked, still standing in the doorway, unwilling or unable to step further into the room that now felt tainted. "I don't know," he admitted. "It wasn't supposed to happen. It was just—" She understood the pressure I was under at work. "It started as just talking and then—" "Spare me the details," Meredith cut him off. "I think I've seen enough to fill in the blanks." The room fell silent except for the music still playing from Daniel's phone, a jazz playlist she had created for him last year. She reached over and shut it off. "I should have stayed in the hospital," she said, more to herself than to him. "Meredith, we can work through this. It was a mistake. A terrible, unforgivable mistake, but You're right about one thing, she interrupted. It is unforgivable. She turned and walked away, each step down the stairs sending pain radiating through her body. She heard Daniel calling after her, his footsteps hurrying to follow. In the kitchen, Meredith filled a glass with water and took one of her pain pills, aware of Daniel watching her from the doorway, now fully dressed. You shouldn't even be home yet, he said. You need to be resting. Yes, well, I'm full of surprises today. She set the glass down with deliberate care. Unlike you, who are apparently just full of lies. The kitchen island stood between them like a battlefield no man's land. Meredith gripped the counter's edge, needing its solidity to keep herself upright as the painkiller began to take effect, dulling the edges of her physical discomfort, but doing nothing for the emotional devastation. Was she the first? Meredith asked. Daniel's hesitation told her everything. How many? He looked down at his hands she had once loved to watch as they sketched buildings and dreams. 3 over the years. Each word was a fresh cut. Over the years, she repeated. So our entire marriage has been a lie. No. His head snapped up. No, Mer, it wasn't like that. They were mistakes, moments of weakness. 3 separate moments of weakness. Her laugh was brittle. And how long was each moment, Daniel? Days? Weeks? Months? He ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture so familiar it made her heart ache for the man she thought she knew. The first was 5 years ago. Jenna from the Boston Project. It lasted a few weeks. The second was 2 years ago. When your father died, she realized, the pieces clicking into place. You shut me out. I thought you were grieving, but you were with someone else. I was grieving, he insisted. That's why it happened. I was lost, and Rebecca was there. Rebecca, Meredith echoed. Your father dies, and instead of turning to your wife, you turn to someone named Rebecca. She shook her head, disgust rising in her throat. And now Vanessa. While I've been talking about having a baby, Daniel's expression crumpled. I got scared. A baby. It's such a big step. I wasn't sure I was ready. So instead of talking to me about your fears, you slept with a client. Meredith's voice was ice. Did you bring all of them here? Into our home? Our bed? He couldn't meet her eyes. You know what the worst part is? She continued, not waiting for his answer. I trusted you completely. Even when the signs were there, I made excuses for you. I defended you to myself. I love you, Meredith, Daniel said, his voice breaking. Despite everything, I do love you. The words that once would have melted her now only fueled her anger. Love? You don't know the meaning of the word. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't cheat. Love doesn't bring another woman into your marital bed while your wife recovers from surgery. I'll do anything to fix this, he pleaded. Therapy, whatever you want. Please, Mer, 8 years. Don't you dare invoke our years together as if they mean something to you, she snapped. If they meant anything, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Daniel stepped toward her, but she held up a hand to stop him. What can I do? He asked desperately. Tell me what I can do. Meredith looked at him, really looked at him. The man she had married, the man she had planned to grow old with. Now a stranger. You can tell me why, she said softly. Not how it happened or when. Why? Was I not enough? Did I change? Did you never really love me at all? Daniel sank onto one of the kitchen stools, shoulders slumped. It wasn't about you. It was never about you not being enough. Then what was it about? I don't know, he admitted. Maybe I'm broken. Maybe I can't handle being happy. Every time things were good between us, really good, I'd find some way to sabotage it, like I didn't deserve it, or was waiting for it all to fall apart anyway. So you made sure it would, Meredith concluded. I guess I did. He looked up at her, eyes red-rimmed. But I never wanted to hurt you, Mer. You have to believe that. And yet, here we are. She gestured to the space between them, the physical space and the vast emotional chasm that had opened. You've destroyed everything we built. We can rebuild, he said, a note of desperate hope in his voice. People recover from affairs all the time. 3 affairs aren't a mistake, Daniel. They're a pattern. They're who you are. Meredith straightened, ignoring the pull of pain from her incision. I deserve better. I deserve someone who doesn't need to recover from repeatedly betraying me. What are you saying? Fear crept into his voice. I'm saying it's over. I want a divorce. The word hung in the air between them, heavy and final. Meredith, please. He started. I want you to leave, she continued, cutting him off. Today. Pack what you need for now. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the rest. This is my house too, he protested. A house you violated repeatedly. Her voice rose for the first time. A house where you brought other women while I was in the hospital recovering from surgery. Do you really want to argue about who should leave right now? Daniel seemed to deflate before her eyes. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know. Call Vanessa, or Rebecca, or Jenna. Each name was a dart thrown with precision. You seem to have plenty of options before. You're not thinking clearly, he tried again. You're on medication. You're in pain. Let's talk tomorrow after you've rested. Meredith felt a surge of white-hot anger. Don't you dare patronize me. Don't you dare suggest that my reaction to finding my husband in bed with another woman is due to medication or lack of sleep. I have never been more clear-headed in my life. Daniel flinched at her tone. I want you gone within the hour, she said, the finality in her voice leaving no room for argument. I'm going to lie down in the guest room because I can't bear to look at our bed right now. When I wake up, you'd better not be here. As she turned to leave the kitchen, Daniel's voice stopped her. I really do love you, Meredith. I know that doesn't mean anything right now, but it's true. She paused but didn't turn around. If this is your version of love, Daniel, I'd rather be hated. 3 weeks later, Meredith sat across from her lawyer, Miranda Cho, reviewing the divorce papers. The surgical incision had healed to a thin pink line, but the emotional wound remained raw and open. He's not contesting anything? Meredith asked, scanning the document. Miranda shook her head, her sleek black bob swinging with the movement. No, he's agreed to all your terms. The house, the investment account split 60-40 in your favor, even the art collection. That doesn't sound like Daniel, Meredith murmured. Her soon-to-be ex-husband had always been meticulous about finances, tracking every penny they spent. Guilt is a powerful motivator, Miranda observed, tapping her pen against the polished conference table. And from what you've told me about how he was caught, he has plenty to feel guilty about. Meredith had been staying in the house alone since that day, surrounded by memories she couldn't escape. Each room held echoes of their life together. The dining room where they'd hosted dinner parties, the living room where they'd curled up to watch movies on rainy Sundays, the office where they'd sometimes worked side by side in comfortable silence. Even with Daniel's clothes gone from the closet and his toiletries cleared from the bathroom, his presence lingered like a stubborn scent. She'd changed the sheets, burned them actually in a moment of dramatic catharsis in the backyard fire pit, but couldn't bring herself to sleep in the master bedroom yet. The guest room had become her sanctuary. There is one thing, Miranda said, pulling Meredith from her thoughts. He's asked to meet with you, in person. Before the divorce is finalized, Meredith's stomach tightened. Did he say why? No, just that he has something he needs to tell you face to face. I don't see what he could possibly have to say that would make any difference now. Miranda gave her a measured look. You don't have to see him. I can tell him to communicate through me. Meredith considered this. Part of her wanted to refuse, to deny him the closure of a final conversation. But another part, the part that had loved him for 9 years, married him for 8, needed answers she still didn't have. I'll meet him, she decided. But on my terms. Public place. Short meeting. I'll arrange it. Miranda nodded, making a note. And Meredith? You're doing remarkably well given the circumstances. Was she? From the outside, perhaps it appeared that way. She'd returned to teaching her classes. She was eating, sleeping, going through the motions of normal life. But inside, she felt hollowed out, as if Daniel had scooped out everything that made her who she was and left behind a functioning shell. The pain wasn't constant anymore. It came in waves now, triggered by small things. Finding one of his socks in the laundry, hearing a song they'd danced to at their wedding, driving past his favorite restaurant. Each reminder was like pressing on a bruise, testing to see if it still hurt. It always did. The cafe was busy enough to provide anonymity, but quiet enough for conversation. Meredith arrived early, choosing a table in the corner where she could see the door. She ordered a cappuccino she didn't want just to have something to do with her hands. When Daniel walked in, her heart performed a complicated maneuver, part clench, part flip, that she despised herself for. He looked terrible. Unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, thinner than he'd been 3 weeks ago. Good, she thought viciously, then immediately felt ashamed of the thought. He spotted her and walked over, his movements hesitant, as if approaching a wild animal that might bolt. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me," he said, remaining standing until she gestured to the chair across from her. "Miranda said you had something to tell me." Meredith kept her voice neutral, professional. Daniel ordered a black coffee when the server approached, then waited until they were alone again. "How are you healing? From the surgery, I mean." "Fine. Is that what you wanted to ask me?" "No." He wrapped his hands around the coffee mug when it arrived, though he didn't drink. "I wanted to tell you that I'm getting help. Therapy. Twice a week." Meredith raised an eyebrow. "Good for you." "I'm not telling you this to try to change your mind about the divorce," he added quickly. "I know that's not. I know we're past that. But I wanted you to know that I'm trying to understand why I did what I did. Why I hurt the one person who always believed in me. And have you figured it out?" she asked, unable to keep the edge from her voice. "Some of it." He looked down at his untouched coffee. "My therapist thinks I have intimacy issues stemming from my parents' relationship. That I sabotage my own happiness because I don't believe I deserve it." "That's very insightful," Meredith said flatly. "But it doesn't undo what you did." "I know that." He met her eyes then, his own filled with a sorrow that might have moved her once. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, Mirror. I just want you to know that it was never about you not being enough. It was about me being afraid of how much I loved you and waiting for you to realize you could do better than me." "So you made sure I would come to that conclusion?" The irony wasn't lost on her. Something like that. He attempted a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Self-fulfilling prophecy. They sat in silence for a moment, the ambient noise of the cafe washing over them. "There's something else," Daniel said finally. "Vanessa is pregnant!" The words hit Meredith like a physical blow. Her cappuccino cup clattered against its saucer as her hand trembled. "It's early," he continued, his voice barely audible over the roaring in her ears. "About 7 weeks. She's keeping it. 7 weeks." While Meredith had been talking about starting their family, Daniel had already created one with someone else. "Are you going to marry her?" The question escaped before she could stop it. Daniel shook his head. "No, she doesn't want that." "Neither do I, but I'm going to be involved in the child's life." "The child you never wanted to have with me," Meredith said, the bitterness she'd been trying to contain spilling out. "That's not true," he protested. "I did want children with you. I was just scared. Scared enough to get another woman pregnant?" She laughed, a harsh sound that drew glances from nearby tables. "Please." "I didn't plan for this to happen," Daniel said, running a hand through his hair. "It was an accident." "Your whole life seems to be one accident after another," Meredith observed coldly. "One day you're going to have to take responsibility for the choices you make." She gathered her purse, preparing to leave. This conversation was going nowhere, and the news about the pregnancy had reopened wounds she was desperately trying to heal. "Wait," Daniel said, reaching across the table but stopping short of touching her. "There's one more thing. The Jensen project, the one I was working on these past few months, it won the International Design Award. The ceremony is next month in Chicago." "Congratulations," Meredith said, not understanding why he was telling her this. "The thing is," he continued, "I used our story as inspiration. The central feature of the building, the atrium that connects all the different spaces. I designed it thinking about how you brought light and connection to every part of my life. How you made everything better just by being in it. Meredith felt tears threatening and blinked them back furiously. Is that supposed to make me feel better? That you were thinking of me while sleeping with other women? No, Daniel said quietly. It's supposed to make you understand that despite my inexcusable actions, what we had was real. My love for you was real, still is, and I'll regret destroying it for the rest of my life. Meredith stood, steadier now as anger replaced hurt. Your regret means nothing to me, Daniel. You've made your choices. Now you get to live with them. As she walked away, she heard him call after her, Meredith, please. She didn't turn around. Outside, the autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and wood smoke. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with it, trying to flush out the lingering scent of Daniel's cologne that seemed to cling to her clothes after even their brief meeting. Her phone buzzed with a text from her friend Claire. How did it go? Need rescue? Meredith started typing a response, then stopped. Did she need rescuing? For years, she'd defined herself in relation to Daniel, as his wife, his partner, his support system. Now she was just herself. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. Instead of answering Claire, she scrolled through her contacts until she found a number she hadn't called in a long time. Dr. Eleanor Wright, the therapist she'd seen briefly after her miscarriage 2 years ago. Hello, Eleanor Wright's office, a friendly voice answered. Hi, this is Meredith Sinclair, she said, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. I'd like to make an appointment. As she walked to her car, scheduling the appointment for the following week, Meredith felt something shift inside her. The pain was still there, the betrayal still raw, but alongside it was something new, a sense of possibility. A future undefined by Daniel's presence or absence. In the rearview mirror, she caught a glimpse of herself, eyes clear, shoulders straight. The woman looking back at her was different from the one who had left the hospital 3 weeks ago, eager to surprise her husband. That woman had been shattered by what she found. This one was being forged in the aftermath. She started the car and pulled away from the cafe, away from Daniel, away from the life she'd thought she would have. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time since that fateful day, Meredith felt ready to travel it, alone, but unbroken. As she drove, she remembered something her grandmother had told her years ago, after her grandfather died. The heart is like a house, Meredith. Sometimes a storm comes through and tears it apart. You can't stop the storm, but you can rebuild. And when you do, you might just build something stronger than before. The house that had been her marriage was gone now, reduced to rubble by Daniel's betrayals. But from those ruins, Meredith would build something new, something that was hers alone, and for now, that was enough.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.